I want to start our discussion on the back and specifically avoiding injuries. You clearly had an amazing powerlifting career that spanned several decades while putting up some of the biggest lifts the sport has ever seen. What did you focus on as far as posture, training frequency, or loading schemes that allowed your back to stay relatively injury free during all of those years?
I walked up and approached the bar exactly the same for 28 years because that put me in a position to get into the position, to get into another position, and so on. So when I walk up the bar, I would set my legs where I wanted them, and I want the bar close to me. Then I wouldn't bend over to grab the bar. I would squat a certain depth, grab the bar. As I grab the bar and pull the tension out, as I'm pulling everyone says chest up, but when you pull your chest up, it kind of locks your very upper back up, but it didn't do anything for my mid back or like my lower lats. So when I concentrate on picking up my sternum as I pull, all of a sudden every muscle from my neck down to my lower back gets squeezed and pulled in tight, which I guess is to protect my spine and maintain that position. So as I do that, at the same time, I try to wiggle my hips in closer to the bar under tension. So when I pull, my hips, so my glutes are already activated, and they start being used right away with my hamstrings and back. So my object was, how can I use my whole body into whatever movement I'm doing? And that was it. As soon as I started picking up my chest with tension against the bar, that's when I wiggled in and kind of moved my hips closer to the bar. And then my glutes are just ready to explode right from the bottom. As far as loads, I took my time. Every training cycle I wrote out from start to finish, every number, every set, every rep, every exercise was fully planned out. Every weight I took, everything was planned out beforehand to where I knew I could do everything without a miss, and it was all doable with no problem at all. A rounding of the back when you lift usually is because you lose tightness somewhere, whether it be in your lats or in any part of your core. So if you lose your brace or you lose that lock-in point around your scapula, it caves right away. You don't have any support anymore.
Ed, I'd love to get your experience, obviously, in your own lifting, but then also just being in the sport for such a long time. Have you seen trends with athletes that used their back way too much, as far as you would see a lot of movement from the spine during the pull of the deadlift, and maybe any trends you saw in back injuries that would occur?
Only when I was younger, because those guys didn't last very long. They don't get old in the sport. I tell everyone at any workshops I do that if you truly love what you do, and you do because you paid to be here, is you want to last as long as you possibly can. And that's where it comes to, you got to dot your I's and cross your T's. You got to do all the little things to keep everything strong and together to work as one unit, rather than, oh, I'll pull with my back, then I'll try to use my hips at the end. Well, now it's too late and you're in a bad position. And the only way to correct that is to break yourself down to where it's really lightweight and do a huge amount of humbling training. And because all your parts, there's so many parts that are so strong, but there's so many that are so weak on people that the weak ones show up and they destroy you at the end. It's just like we're a sum of all our parts put together. And if all those parts aren't put together strong, it's just like what Stu said with a train. What happens if there's a weak link? Train doesn't move, or else it breaks apart. And it's done. Especially when you talk about anything that has to do with a back and a load, that's unbelievable amount of pain and suffering that you may never get back. Once you have a back surgery, it's really, really hard to be back to normal. It's not like other injuries. So yeah, they just don't last too long. They're too gung ho. And there's been some guys who were horrendously strong. I had a guy that I used to help out. When he trained with me, he'd go 8 for 9 or 9 for 9 in a contest. But when he watched videos, he got so hyped up because of what everyone else did, it would take him out of his game. I mean, he did a walked out front squat with no knee wraps with 855 pounds, then ended up hurting his hip. Too heavy, too often, too much load too often. He didn't take the time to build back up to get ready to do 855 to 900. So he didn't base his training at the beginning on saying, okay, this is what I need to do at the beginning to get me to the end. He just wanted to get to the end too fast. And that's what too many of the guys do nowadays. And as soon as you put too much load on there, or too much volume and intensity for too long, now your technique breaks down because the little things can't hold up to the load that they're getting put on them. And then it exacerbates and exacerbates, and your technique and your motor patterns get worse and worse and worse. So a lot of times you wonder, well, it didn't feel heavy. Why did I get hurt? Because your motor pattern isn't the same as it was when it was perfect.
True. And
That
I think
happens all the time.
the big thing that I think a lot of people don't realize is the more you lift with poor technique and the more load, you ingrain that motor pattern in your mind to move that way, so that when you do default under heavy load, you default to that problematic motor pattern.
Yep, that's when you get hurt or stuck and you can't grow. And everyone says they blame it on the routine. It's not the routine. It's you. You did it yourself. And just take your time. Make it perfect all the time, and you'll never have a problem, and you could do it forever.
I love it.